Joining us on the program today is George Tzinas, Chief Experience Officer with Benefitalign. George, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Great to have you on the program today.
Thanks for having me.
Give our audience a little background on Benefitalign, please.
Sure. Benefitalign started back in around 2012, grew out of a CRM consultancy and development shop. So what we do is we have a very horizontal platform that allows us to go from the initial shopping, compare, enroll, all the way through into your legacy system and really build solutions that start from one end and go to the other. We have multiple modules you can plug in for commission management, for instance, and analytics and reporting. So we really have a really horizontal platform to support health plans, brokers, employers, pretty much the whole segment.
So what are your distribution channels? All of the above? Is that what you how do you take it?
So we had some really great early success in the carrier markets. So we launched, I think, three or four carrier solutions back when I think it was around 2012, 2013. And more recently, we've really had a lot of activity in the broker side. So we're doing really well in that space now. And I'm sure many of your listeners, if they're brokers, they realize the pressures that they're under with compressed margins and things like that. So we're really trying to help out the broker community because they need a little love in this marketplace.
What is the typical size of your target employer client right now? Is there a sweet spot that you are focused on?
On the employer side?
Yeah.
Well, typically when you're looking at a private exchange on the employer side, you're looking at something that's going to be larger than 100. So it's not the smaller groups. So it's 100 to 500 is kind of the sweet spot that everybody chases. So the reason for that is the really jumbo groups typically have a consultancy and a lot of technology that comes with that. But if you're not looking to spend the big bucks on a consultancy and technology solution and you're a little bit smaller organization, then we definitely have a suite of solutions for you.
George, this is Ron Bachman. We have a lot of brokers that do come to our forums and participate in the different activities of the Institute, along with many of the other solution providers and benefit managers and such. But on the broker side, can you give a little bit better description of what the services are that you're providing for a broker and how you differentiate yourself? What's the real value that you're bringing to an existing broker who's operating a business that may be a couple of brokers and a half dozen staff or more to deal with their client base? Is that a target for you? And what are you really bringing that solves their problems?
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely in our wheelhouse. What we look to do is automate and really scale the organizations because with MLR pressures and commissions coming down, they really need to increase their volumes. So that's what we focus on. So whether they're selling individual plans that are subsidy eligible or group business, we have a solution in there that helps streamline the enrollment process. So we help them more effectively go through the shop, compare, and enroll process. Bring down any subsidies, apply everything, and get them up and going. Or if you're in the group side, to make it much easier for them to show a group what are their options and what are here's a couple of different scenarios. So let's help you understand what your options are side by side. But one of the things that really separates us is that we have spent a lot of time focusing on building a plan and rate repository so we can load all your plans, all your rates, and everything can be generated out of there, your proposals, your quotes, everything. It's all connected to a CRM so you can manage your pipeline very effectively. And then we connect all that downstream to any of your customer support. So it's the same CRM, what you sold to whom, and now if they're calling up if they have questions, it's very easy to service them as well. So it's a real kind of a 360 project, so you can really see through the whole life cycle how to best manage your membership.
So have you gotten contracts or relationships or feedback from all the major carriers and even regional carriers on what their pricing is for their products, or does this require the broker to get the bids and put them into your system?
Well, as we go state to state, we also have associated with our organization our own brokerage, so we get a lot of the plan details ahead of time. So we can either work with the carriers directly on behalf of the brokers and pull all that information down, and we set it all up on their behalf in our system. or if there's plans, or say they're even ancillary products, we can work with them as well and bring in that information and put it all into the system. So we can do it. All you have to do is just tell us, hey, who you targeting, who you appointed with, and we'll take it from there.
Just instead of just describing it as a sort of an administrative system, a CRM system, you promote yourself as a private exchange. How do you move from the system, the back room activities and technologies into an exchange? What's the difference there, and what do you bring into the forefront that other private exchanges might not be doing right now?
Well, when we have our, like I said, we load all the plans and rates into our system, so it's an active private exchange where you have multiple carrier plans. You can load them up and filter them or sort them however you want. So if you want to only find, plans that cost, X dollars, you can sort for that. You can say, show me only, Blues plans or some other carrier's plans. Filter that down, and you can very quickly go from a portfolio of 100 plans down to, say, 5 plans, and then say, okay, now that we've loaded up your census, let's see what these things cost you. And now you can very quickly go from 5 plans to 2 plans and say, here's these 2 plans are very similar. They'll cost you around the same. Here's a quick and dirty way to go from a very big population of plans to a very small one, and all the information you need to really make those decisions is right in front of you.
Now, where do you see private exchanges going?
Well, private exchanges, I think, are really here to stay. They're going to be around, and it depends who you ask. If you ask Accenture, they're going to be a humongous part of the enrollment cycle in the next 1 to 2 years. I think they may be a little aggressive on that, but I think by 2020 you're going to see a very large percentage of the population purchasing through private exchanges. So, and I think overall they also support increasing consumerism and realignment of the market that you're seeing. So consumers are taking more charge. They want more transparency. They want to make more decisions. And I think private exchanges facilitate that on that, the consumerism.
Well, that's why we've been so interested in it here at the Institute for Healthcare Consumerism, because we do think it provides the choices and options in a more visible, transparent way. Are there any particular models out there that you think are going to be more successful? Are you moving in one direction or another, not just towards market segments, but the type of exchange services you provide? I assume what you're doing is not just health insurance, as life insurance and supplemental products, disability products, et cetera. There's some areas that you see growing and expanding as we move forward with more robust exchanges?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're going to see all of those that are not subject to MLR restrictions. Selling life and LTD and those things certainly are very profitable for brokers. And especially if you tie them together in exchange with combined billing, it really makes it simple to purchase a lot of these things. The other thing that we really focus on now, too, is a lot of the exchange analytics, because there's a whole lot of stuff you can do once you start understanding some of the buying patterns and habits, see what people like or don't like. It just makes it much easier when you go either selling a new plan or into the renewal cycle. Having all that data at your fingertips makes it much easier. And frankly, what happens is a lot of times people come in and say, well, how do I compare to other companies like me? Those kind of questions come up all the time, and having the data right there to answer that, I think, is really helpful, especially for small business owners.
George, are you working around compliance? Are you doing anything with ACA tools as part of your exchange model?
Yeah, well, we have we have direct connections to pull down the subsidies, so we connect right into the FFM. So one of our clients, for instance, what they do is they connect through us. They see as an individual shopper, you'll see here's a $300 a month plan. Click this. Oh, look, you're eligible for some subsidy. Now that $300 is crossed out and it says $150. And it just goes from there. And we pull down all the reporting from the FFM and manage that. We do a FFM reconciliation between all the data. Because I'm not sure how familiar you are with that process, but it's not very pretty. Let's put it that way. So a lot of the data gets jumbled up, and so we help cleanse that so that the carriers know exactly what the FFM knows, and the FFM reconciles with everything that the carrier knows.
How about the retiree side of the business? Are you working with any retiree benefit exchange models?
Yeah, we do support that, and we have, again, it comes back to, keep going back to this, to the analytics. So we do the reporting to help you manage your retiree population. which is not an insignificant number of people. We're talking about millions of people over the next 10 or 15 years are going to be aging into Medicare, for instance. So you've got, I think it's something like 75 million people between 50 and 65 today. Managing that population to make sure that you give them the options they need. If Medicare is the right solution for them, that you inform them, on the schedule to say, hey, you got 3 months, you might want to look at this, or we may have a retiree options for you that you can pick through a private exchange and set that up, whether it's with or without a defined contribution. So we definitely support all of that.
What do you see? We're moving into this fall's open enrollment period, and then out of that into 2017, obviously plan year. What do you predict are going to be some of the interesting outcomes of this fall's open enrollment period?
Well, there's a couple things happening, right? So the penalties for non-coverage are increasing, so that's going to drive, at least on the margin, some of the folks that have been sitting on the fence. I think there's a lot of folks also in the group business that are trying to figure out, how do I get a handle on this thing, and do I really want to go forward with this, or do I decide I don't want to offer insurance anymore? And one of the things that's interesting about defined contributions, I'm just going to steer over there for a second, going along with the private exchange model, is that a lot of folks think that defined contribution is about cost shifting. And all the folks that I spoke with that are considering it are not looking at it that way at all. In fact, what they're looking at is saying, you know what, I can get cost predictability. If I know I'm going to give $3,000 or $4,000 per my employer for their health care, I can budget that much sooner than waiting till the end of open enrollment to see all the plan options that were selected. So I think, at least on that side, I'm seeing a lot more push toward getting control over this thing that, frankly, is I know medical inflation is not growing nearly as fast as it was, but it's still a significant portion of a small business expense. So I think there's going to be more focus on understanding how to best predict the control costs using a defined contribution setup.
George, this is Ron Bachman again. Can you tell us, our audience, what you see in terms of plan selection? Are there more people moving to high deductible health plans, to HSA eligible plans? Are they choosing more supplemental products? What's the general movement that you're seeing out of the analytics?
I think you're seeing a lot of folks. I mean, the deductibles have been increasing for as long as I've been alive, really. I mean, I don't think you ever see zero deductible plans anymore. So yeah, definitely the deductibles are going up. What's interesting is it's kind of a fragmentation though of where people get coverage too. So their coverage options may depend partly on, are they subsidy eligible? That's a whole new channel. Buying online through the FFM or through the state exchange, those are completely different channels. And when you see private exchanges, for instance, in New Mexico, there's True Coverage, which can offer individual, group, and then shortly is ancillary products will be coming up on that. So being able to buy ancillary altogether, I think that's where people are going. People buy insurance because they need it, not because they want it. And so having more choices and being able to buy the right plan for their life situation, I think, is really critical. So you're going to see a lot more slicing of the pie, I think, to your point.
Yeah. George, listen, we've appreciated having you on the program, and we look forward to seeing you next week in Baltimore. I want to give you an opportunity to leave our audience with a couple takeaways, please.
Sure. Well, private exchanges are here to stay, and they're growing in use in states, in small and large groups. If you're going to stand one up, you have to really understand what you're trying to accomplish so you can effectively evaluate the vendors and understand that there's going to be a lot of operational and technical challenges when you're implementing it, but in the end, it's going to be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've appreciated George, and like I said before, the audience, you can join George and his team at Private Exchange Forum in Baltimore next September 1st and 2nd at the Renaissance Inner Harbor. George, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, George.